All right, y'all. So the breakdown of the book of Revelation, chapter 6. So the first few chapters of Revelation presents a certain level of symbolism. Chapter 6 marks something of a change as the imagery will become more and more elaborate. This reliance on the symbolism must be kept in mind when reading and interpreting John's vision. Not all of the descriptions and revelations are meant to be understood in absolute literal terms. Okay. Not all are meant to be understood symbolically. In some cases, it seems John is describing literal events using dramatic poetic language. Context and caution are useful in knowing which passage falls into which category, excuse me. Yo, I be like Loki holding my breath trying to get these videos out. I'm so sorry for the heavy breathing. Okay, so Revelation 6 opens with Jesus the Lamb. Revelations 5, 5 through 7, beginning to open the seven seals on a scroll containing God's judgment on sin. Revelations 5, 1 and 2, verse 1 through 2. The first seal is opened, and one of the four living creatures around God's throne. Revelations 4, 6, and 8 shouts out a command. John then sees a rider on a white horse wearing a crown and carrying a bow. His power is conquering, and this figure is most often associated with the Antichrist, if you want to call it that. Revelation 13, 1 through 10, some sort of political leader who will drastically oppose God during the tribulation. The chaos which ensures after this rider means that this is not Jesus who will return separately much later in the end times. Revelations 19, 11 through 16, and then chapter 20, verse 4, establishing a kingdom of peace. The writer described here as a different role in the prophesied events, Revelation 6, 1 through 2. The second seal results in another shout from one of the angelic living creatures. A second rider, the horse is red and is associated with war. This complements the first rider's power of conquering. Through the welfare predicted, here might be a response to this world leader rather than the way he rises to power. And that's Revelation 6, 3 through 4. The third seal again brings a command from one of the living creatures in another horseman. This horse is black, and the rider carries a set of scales, balancing meant to carefully weigh things. Okay. This immediately suggests theocracy. Theocracy. Y'all know these words be tearing me up. People typically are careful to make precise measurements of things which are scarcity. Scarcity. Okay. Or precious. Another voice not identified indicates that what is scarce is food, referring to wheat and barley. The quantities of grain and money are both typical for one day. This suggests famine, where people are struggling to make ends meet. On the other hand, finer things like oil and wine are not harmed, implying that the rich implying that the rich and powerful are somewhat insulted from this particular disaster. And that's Revelation 6 and 5, 6, 5 through 6. The fourth seal in command brings a horse described using the Greek word chloros. This is used elsewhere in the Bible to describe grass and plants, a yellowish green. Mark 6:39, Revelations 8:7, and then 9 and 4. While healthy in plant and living flesh, this is the color of infection and decay. It's translated as pale in many English translations to distinguish it from the first white horse, to evoke the imagery of the rider, death. Death is followed by Hades. In this context, a reference to the unseen spiritual world. Whether this horseman effects are separate from the other three or coordinated, its impact is horrific. War, famine, disease, wild animals, and so forth killed a fourth of people of earth. Revelation 6, 7 through 8. The fifth seal brings a contrast to the first four. There is no shout or command. There also seems to be no particular effect on earth at the opening of this particular seal. Rather, John sees martyrs at the altar of heaven. These seem to be those killed during the tribulation, making them believers who came to Christ after the rapture. I always wondered about that. Okay. Chapter 7's description of those sealed by God most likely include this group. These martyrs praise and acknowledge God while begging Him to avenge their death. God's response is for them to wait. Whew, that's harsh, but I get it. Since there are others yet to be martyred for proclaiming Christ. Revelation 6 9 through 11. The sixth seal describes some colossal series of natural disaster. John's description here evokes earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, meteor showers, pollution or blockage of the sky, and even atmospheric. I don't know how to pronounce it. Y'all ain't gonna hold you disruption. These events are so desired that even the rich and powerful cower in fear. Interestingly, the people of earth acknowledge that these events are the result of God's wrath. The disaster is so terrifying that even those who suppress the truth of God, Romans 1:18 through 25, are compelled to admit what is really happening, and that's Revelation 6:12 through 17. Chapter 7 continues the events which happen after the opening of the sixth seal. Y'all, we really, every day when I read these and break these down, it just shows me more and more that we really need to know this stuff because it's going to happen and we need to be aware. So, chapter context, the largest section of Revelation extends from chapter 4 to the end and describes events that are to take place after this. Revelations 1:19. Chapter 5 focuses on the scroll containing God's judgment on sin and a search for someone to open it. Only Jesus is worthy to open it. When Jesus took the scroll from God, he received praise from every creature in heaven and on earth. Now, in chapter 6, our attention focuses on the events that transpire when Jesus opens the sixth of the seven seals one at a time. The progress, this process will continue through chapter 8. And I do have another breakdown. I wonder if I have time. Let's say we're just gonna do a part 2, and I'm going to do that now. All right, y'all. So this is part 2 of the breakdown of the Book of Revelation, chapter 6. So Revelation chapter 6 focuses on the opening of the first six seals by Jesus, revealing judgments and events that lead to the tribulation. These judgments include the four horsemen representing conquest, war, famine, and death. The chapter also depicts the souls of martyrs crying out for justice and cosmic disturbances. Ultimately, Revelation 6 highlights God's judgment on sin and the suffering of believers, urging them to focus on Him amidst tribulation. So we have key aspects. The seven seals. Jesus, as the Lamb, begins to open the seven seals on a scroll containing God's judgment. The four horsemen, each horseman on a white, red, black, and pale horse, symbolizes conquest, war, famine, and death, respectively. Judgment and suffering. The seal depicts various forms of judgment and the suffering experienced by humanity, including war, famine, and death. Martyrs' cry. The fifth seal reveals the souls of martyrs under the altar crying out for God's vengeance and justice. Cosmic disturbances. The sixth seal describes apocalyptic events like a great earthquake or darkened sun and falling stars, signifying the intensity of God's judgment. Okay, so then there is themes and interpretation. God's judgment. This chapter emphasizes God's judgment on sin and the consequences of rebellion against Him. Focus on Christ amidst the judgments. The chapter also highlights the importance of fixing one's eye on Jesus and finding hope in Him. Tribulation and suffering. Sorry, y'all. So, tribulation and suffering. Revelation 6 portrays the reality of suffering for believers and the challenges they will face, especially during the tribulation period. Symbolic language. The imagery in Revelation includes the horseman and cosmic event is often interpreted symbolically rather than literally. Okay. Okay. I want to read y'all something else. If I'm not mistaken, during the tribulation period, um, unbelievers will have the mark of the beast, or they'll have God's name on your forehead. So it says God's name stands for his character and his ownership of his service. In the tribulation, unbelievers receive the mark of the beast on their forehead as a pledge of their loyalty to him. And that's in Revelation 13, 6 through 17. And we're probably gonna get to that. Throughout eternity, God's servant will demonstrate their loyalty to the one who redeemed them. All right now. So maybe you just have the mark of the beast on your forehead if you're an unbeliever. Maybe not necessarily God's name. I don't know. We're going to break that down when we get to Revelation 13, 16, and 17. Revelation 13, 16 through 17. So, normal girl. All right, y'all. It is 1 o'clock in the morning. I need to go to bed. I hope by the time you see this, I hope y'all would have had a beautiful day, a beautiful Sunday, gotten a good praise and worship, and a great, powerful sermon message from a true, real pastor, not a false teacher, not a false prophet, none of that. Somebody that is a true disciple, a true man or woman of God. All right, y'all. I'll see you guys later. Bye.